Organisation I was working for was bought while I was on maternity leave. I was in my 3rd month of maternity leave, and I was quite shocked. It wasn't something that we were expecting. So I kind of immediately started to think, right, well, obviously there's the potential that my role will be at risk. And also it sort of got me thinking if I necessarily wanted to stay at the organisation. I'd been there around about 4 years by that point, and I was certainly looking at the possibility of if they, if I could get promoted, but also I was, sort of starting to think like, is there a new challenge I want? I was kind of very open-minded. So I knew that there was this Get Appointed programme going on being hosted by you, Ali. And I actually mentioned it to my boss and said, I think I might invest in this for me because I want to take this as a positive and I want to try and experience this in as positive a way as I can. And actually he said, well, look, why don't you get Ali to come in and talk to me about it and present what the programme is, and it's potentially something we could have with the team. So we went down that route. We brought you in for our team, and it was really, really helpful because I think certainly from our team's perspective, most of us had no idea about any of the rights that you have in a takeover or how redundancy pools work or any of those sorts of things. And also a lot of us have been in the organisation for at least 2 years, and in that time job seeking has massively changed. The role of websites like LinkedIn have become much larger than they were back when I was job hunting 5 years ago. So your program was really helpful in educating us on the legal aspect, educating us on the technological aspects of job hunting, but also really sort of starting to think about how we were presenting ourselves at different stages of the process, both internally with our company to secure the best possibility of being given a role if that was how the merger process was going to work, but also how to present ourselves at different stages externally of the organisation if we were looking to find roles outside of the company. So that in itself was incredibly helpful, and really gave, I think, certainly me, and I would say for the broader team, a lot of confidence about how they were going into the process. For me, it was getting my CV updated and really digging into how to present the work and experience that I had in the most effective way, because I'd been there for 4 years. I'd done a huge amount of work, and it was certainly, I find I tend to just do the work and move on to the next thing. I don't sort of pause and reflect and think about it in the way that you need to present it as, say, case studies to then use in a CV. So that was incredibly helpful, really thinking through in a very structured way the experience on projects or discrete pieces of work that I had done was extremely helpful. And then also I think,
the results you delivered. I mean, you have done phenomenal things whilst you've been in that organisation, and to be able to get that across concisely and kind of
that, and I got great feedback from people on my CV. And then also the other thing I think I found incredibly helpful was actually how to handle yourself in what seems like informal conversations, which I think the more senior you get, the more informal conversations you will have, where actually you are essentially being interviewed. It's being presented to you as if it's not. And I think certainly when I first came back from maternity leave, I did do an interview that I think I handled incorrectly, and didn't get further in the process. And I think that's because I hadn't taken it to be as sort of formal as it actually was. I think I had taken on face value, they were like, oh, we just want to have a chat, and that's how I'd taken it, and really it was an interview, and I hadn't probably prepared enough. So every single time after that I was having a chat with anybody, I was approaching it like a proper full-on interview.
And so tell me a little bit about how the role that you're now stepping into, which is a director level role. Fantastic, congratulations.
Thank you.
And just tell me a little bit about how that emerged, because it sounds like it kind of emerged from that networking informal interviews process.
Yeah, so the person who approached me about the role was someone I have actually known in my industry for many, many years. And he has been very vocal over the years about trying to hire me. And lots of informal coffees and things like that, and I'd always resisted. and you know, just at that point in my career, it wasn't the right move. And so he actually approached me, and it was a very, very informal process to begin with. Lots of sort of, you know, just chats that happened to happen, and then progressed to me saying, okay, well, actually, I am, you know, quite interested. Let's have a more formal conversation. And then it went into a formal interview process that was structured and led by HR. Although it was indicated to me very strongly, you are very much, you know, a candidate we are interested in, but I was by no means handed the job. I had to go through a 3-stage interview process.
Preparatory work that we did in the training, what did you use the most, I guess, or what was some of the most impactful stuff that you'd taken from that training that you were able to, you know, as you was, I think this is also really important to note that, you know, I support people in the background and I'm with them every step of the way, but you are still the one who's in that room having to prepare, having to present, and you're still the one in the room having to articulate and, you know, talk about your achievements and your deliverables. So it's all still the candidate, you know, who's doing the work.
Yeah, and that was the thing, you know, you were very helpful in you know, I had my case studies down, but also I think really importantly, certainly for when you get to those more formal late stage interviews, you know, they're trying to dig under the surface of who you really are and how you will actually behave in a work environment with them. And so you get the classic question of, you know, tell me about a time you've made a mistake. And I had a case study ready and I had my response ready so that I wasn't sat there going, nothing, everything I've done has been perfect. You know, I was very ready to be able to answer those, you know, they're not purposely, you know, trying to, sort of upset your flow, but they're trying to get to something else and getting you to present something about yourself that isn't perfect. So I'd already prepared for that. That was really helpful. Having the case study, but also having a really clear list of questions I had for them. And I think the preparation that I did with you was incredibly helpful in really focusing my mind on, this is a two-way process. And I didn't have to leave my role. I had been offered a role at the company I had been working at. And so for me, it was a little bit of a comparison and a contrast of what could this new organisation offer me versus me staying in my current role. Yes. And that is really valuable.
Yeah, and I remember us doing a bit of work on the kind of, when we came to talk about evaluating offers and really understanding what is everything, my total reward, everything that I get, benefits, perks, so you can really compare and contrast with any offers that you're getting. And then you're in a position to know, well, what matters to me? What actually do I want to negotiate? And how might I then land an offer that really is going to be, you know, I'm going to absolutely be excited to get started. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So, you know, because I was so aware of what it was I was looking for, I was able to be quite upfront in those initial informal conversations and say, you know, this is the situation I'm in. You know, I appreciate you're not, you know, the company that I'm now joining is not the same sort of organisation as the one I'm leaving, which is an international company. And I sit in a UK affiliate. So we had very open and honest and frank conversations about what that would mean from a remuneration perspective, and my expectations. And to the point where it was so open and honest that when I was still sort of umming and ahhing about if I wanted to go forward into a more formal process, I was sent an email detailing how this would be a huge step forward for my career and all of the benefits that the company could offer me, both financial and more career structure benefits. You know, it meant that I actually had quite a strong hand. It wasn't a sense of, oh, I might get made redundant, who will take me? I definitely felt like I was in control, and I was very, you know, it was my decision in what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And given that you are the mother of a young, beautiful girl, Edie, and, you know, you and your husband both work full time. Yeah. So I imagine that was also part of what was important for you about moving into a new company, was giving you some flexibility around that. How were they responsive? I presume so, otherwise you wouldn't have accepted.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I had a conversation with HR as part of the interview process as well. They weren't interviewing me, they were telling me about, and I was actually quite surprised. I thought it might be like an interview of me according to their values, which is something I've done previously in interview processes, but actually it was much more of an advertising of their support for staff, really emphasising, they have a support system for working parents, their maternity policies, and what they do to support working parents, lots and lots of detail about how they are a supportive employer, which is something that I haven't had actually from big international companies. So it was very impressive, and I think it was I was always very open that I work full time, my husband works full time. It's not a case of I have someone at home who can go pick up my child. Like, it is a shared responsibility. So they recognise that.
So thrilled to hear about the good employers out there, because unfortunately in my line of work I come across women who have been made redundant whilst on maternity, treated like utter rubbish, and even when they do come back off maternity leave, their status somehow being shifted and in a negative way, and it really makes me cross. So to hear of an employer who is very forward thinking, was very have those policies and practices in place, that is music to my ears. And hopefully people's ears who are watching this, that are good employers out there. So one question I would have is also about, so we're heading into an almighty recession. The unemployment rate is predicted to go up by 10%. There are going to be real challenges as people come off furlough and entering the job market potentially in large numbers. What would be your advice? Is there comfort you can give them, or is it what would you share, what would you say to those people?
As in, if they're looking for new roles, or
if they're getting made redundant, if they're kind of either. Actually, you're right. One, if they're just anxious about what is going to happen next because we're heading to a recession and they're coming off furlough and companies may make people redundant later down the line, and also those who are currently actually job hunting and on the job market.
Well, when I was going through the interview process, I did say, look, I'm very aware that, because I was offered this job in the middle of the pandemic, right in the beginning. So, I was very clear with them, and I said, look, if I'm to accept a role, I need to feel, I need definite, solid reassurance that this offer will not be rescinded whilst I'm on my notice period. And they gave me that in writing. So, that was something I was very clear about, was I will not give up a job and then you close down the job whilst I'm on notice, so I lose completely. And they, at every single step of the interview process, I asked about that and was told repeatedly, we have gone through all of our jobs on offer, and this is one that we are definitely continuing to recruit for. We really need it. Whereas we have actually, some roles we have pulled back on hiring. I think if you are job hunting, or you're thinking you might have to be job hunting from redundancy, get your case studies ready, get your CV ready, and don't just draft your CV and go, okay, that's fine. Like, really, really think about how it's selling you, tailor it for every single application, which I hate doing, but really works. And, just really think about what is it you're trying to emphasize for each one of those applications. And be aware that your network is going to be very, very helpful. I didn't get my new role from LinkedIn. I got it from the network I had been building for the last 13 years. And the people who can best advertise you are often the people you work with. I'm very aware that one of the reasons my current employer is interested in me is I think I have a good reputation in my industry, and my peers have said that. So I think it's all about staying visible, networking, and I know that's really hard to do when we're on lockdown, but Zoom is a way of doing it. WhatsApp, just keeping in contact with people, having phone calls, just normal phone calls.
What's that? A landline?
Yeah, exactly. And just staying, just trying to stay relevant, keep reading things. Like I've been on notice period at the moment, so I haven't been hugely busy. So I've been reading loads of books in my subject area. I've been watching lots of documentaries, reading magazines. I've just tried to keep myself up to date, and I think that also really helps. So it's unfortunately there's probably not as many job roles out there as maybe there might have been, but they are still out there. Companies are still recruiting. It's just about making sure that you're prepared for when that role comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things I probably said to you and the team that we were working with is you only need one. You only need one fantastic job. So don't worry too much if you're not seeing the right kind of things that you want advertised. Yeah. Applying for jobs online anyway is the absolute lowest priority, I would say, when you're looking to step into that next big role. Absolutely working your network. And yes, recruiters, but I think companies are pulling back on giving recruiters those assignments because they're trying to save money. So you might actually find that they are not having as many roles as they might normally have. They normally have a peak in kind of, well, for senior level roles, October, November, February, March, and May and June all are like peaks in senior level recruitment. But they have said they've already seen a less of a peak than they were predicting, and that was before the pandemic. That was after Brexit and everything. So yeah, so it's working your network and being completely ready and prepared. Yeah, fantastic advice.